With more than 200 songs in their catalog, which includes some of the best-known covers in metal, Judas Priest still have only 5 cover songs in their repertoire, although of course it feels like there are many more, simply because of how iconic some of those are. And yet still, the last cover song Judas Priest recorded was released 36 years ago. So let's take a look at why it is so that the band, well known for its unique renditions of other musicians' songs, suddenly stopped making those, and how those songs changed metal forever. Here you go. Real quick, before we start, guys, as always, please do not hesitate to comment on anything you hear or see in this video, and especially if you disagree with me, because the whole point of our Defenders of the Faith series is, of course, to start a conversation. But alright, let's do it. When talking about the very first song Judas Priest ever covered, most fans would immediately think about the legendary Diamonds and Rust, and they would indeed be correct, as it was the very first cover song which has made it on a Judas Priest studio record. Yet, in reality, it was actually first recorded several years before it made it on Sin After Sin. In addition to that, was by far not the first cover Judas Priest had ever played. After the formation of the Judas Priest we know today in 1969, K.K. Downing, Ian Hill and the vocalist Al Atkins immediately started writing their own material, which they mostly came up with at Al's mother's living room, thus giving birth to the very first Judas Priest originals, those being Dreamer Deceiver, Never Satisfied, Caviar and Maths, and the early version of what was later to become the legendary Victim of Changes, by then known as Whiskey Woman. Whiskey Woman, don't you know that you are driving me insane? Yet in reality, having 4 songs is of course not enough for a full live set, and therefore, just like it has been done by pretty much every young rock band in the 70s, a Judas Priest live concert of that period mostly consisted of covers, including the ones on such artists as Jimi Hendrix, but mostly on the amazing and a very overlooked rock band Quatermass, into which the boys included a couple of their own songs here and there.
I'm gonna watch you eat. What else would bother me? I gotta get to grip.
Unfortunately, pretty much no recordings of that earliest period of Judas Priest are available to us today, yet thanks to the man called Simon Wilson and his friend who rescued this tape several decades ago, we actually do have a chance to enjoy a very rare live rendition of the song titled Running Away From My Soul, performed together by both Budgie and Judas Priest on the same stage in 1974. Yet, of course, the very first cover song which has officially made it on Judas Priest's studio record was the legendary Judas Priest style heavy metal's rendition of Joan Baez's hit Diamonds and Rust.
As I remember, your eyes were bluer than robin's eggs. My poetry was lousy, you said.
The original idea to make a heavy metal version of the lyrical Diamonds and Rust, which, unlike a popular belief, Joan Baez did not actually sing about Bob Dylan, but rather about her husband David Harris, came to Gull Records during the writing sessions of Judas Priest's sad Wings of Destiny album. Yet, according to Rob Halford's interview from the 1980s, Gull Records, despite insisting on the band recording this cover, never really seriously considered including it on the album, and were absolutely not fans of the Judas Priest rendition of the track. Yet after switching to CBS Records while working on their third record Sin After Sin, together with the legendary and by then already a very experienced Roger Glover of Deep Purple, Judas Priest were once again asked to consider making a cover on a recognizable pop song. And after hearing the stunningly heavy rendition of Diamonds and Rust Judas Priest prepared for their previous label, CBS had no doubts they knew how to make this version an instant hit among heavy metal maniacs around the globe. Now, I actually made a very long and detailed episode about Diamonds and Rust and its evolution throughout the years, so I'm not gonna go into the details of this song in this particular episode, but I just wanted to once again point out that I actually am very happy that the original rock-and-roller version of Diamonds and Rust did not actually make it on the album, as in my opinion, Diamonds and Rust perfectly fits on sin after sin. And it is on this album that together with Roger Glover, Judas Priest were able to make this song truly unique and their own, which eventually has helped them gain their spot at the heavy metal Olymp. And since its original release in 1977, the song Diamonds and Rust has gotten a new life. And with its example, Judas Priest showed the entire world how diverse heavy metal can be and how much aggression, power and vigor it can hold while still remaining touchy and almost romantic at the same time, opening this genre up from a completely new, unknown before angle for many rockers around the world. And here's the thing, I actually have seen Judas Priest several times live, and I have to point out that pretty much each and every time that I've seen this band live and they played Diamonds and Rust, they played it in a completely new and different manner. And this here alone is a key to understand how amazing Judas Priest actually were at covering other bands' tracks, as unlike many other bands in the genre, they were always, without any exceptions, able to make it truly their own song. And even when they started to transform and perform Diamonds and Rust in a non-canonical way, it still, every time, remained an undeniably Judas Priest song, despite actually not being written by the boys. Stained Glass is a unique album, and not really only because together with Killing Machine they remain the only albums being released in the same year in the entire Judas Priest discography, but also because it is the only Judas Priest record which was actually supposed to feature not one, but whole two covers. After the end of the writing and recording sessions for Stained Glass, CBS Records, remembering how much success has Diamonds and Rust brought to Judas Priest, approached the band's management with a request for a cover they could push as a single. And since the Stained Glass producer Dennis McKay was no longer available, Judas Priest invited the famous James Guthrie, best known for his work with Pink Floyd and for later producing Queen's Righteous The Warning, to help them choose and record an instantly recognizable cover track, eventually landing on the Spooky Tooth hit Better By You, Better Than Me.
Better by you, better than me.
And I guess no one could even imagine back then that it is this song which will eventually change not only the lives of the Judas Priest members, but also would put the entire heavy metal to test a bit more than 20 years later, as the eyes of the entire music world would be locked on the infamous Judas Priest trial.
Better by you, better than me. You can say what I only can see.
But in reality, although it didn't actually make it on Stained Glass at first, during the Stained Glass session, Judas Priest also recorded a cover on Guns' Race with the Devil, which, I have to be honest with you, is actually one of my favorite covers Judas Priest have ever done in their career.
Better run, you better run, you better run from the devil's gun.
Race with the Devil is an extraordinary song, which, written by Gunn in 1968, was way ahead of its time, and even its original version still sounds incredibly powerful and up-to-date today, 56 years later. And I believe this may be the reason why it hasn't actually made it on the album, as although Judas Priest still were able to make it their own, unlike the other songs Priest covered before, the Gunn version itself was actually pretty heavy. So simply comparing how much of a Judas Priest touch had to be given to this track to make it metal, I guess it would be in the bottom of the list of those 5 tracks. And yet still, I honestly, absolutely love the energy Judas Priest brought into this track, and especially with Rob Halford's unusual vocal performance on it. 1978 was a breakthrough year for Judas Priest. Right in the wings of success of Stained Glass, Judas Priest decided to release another album that same year. An album which actually features some of the most well-known songs in the entire Judas Priest repertoire, including the one after which it was named in the United States. And so I guess it is only fair that Killing Machine also features possibly the best known cover Judas Priest have ever done in their career. As weird as it may sound, but the cover on the Green Manalishi has helped Judas Priest cement their status as metal gods. In fact, it showed the world that Judas Priest is heavy metal itself. Covering the legendary Fleetwood Mac song was a rather risky step, as unlike, for example, Diamonds and Rust, this was one of the tracks which every metalhead knew by then. And so the only way to succeed with such a cover was to bring something new and unique to it. And we all know that somehow Glenn Tipton and KK Downing were able to make the instrumental part of the song sound so distinctive that together with Rob Halford's one-of-a-kind voice, the Judas Priest version of the Green Manalishi has pretty much become a canonical for many fans around the globe. Although actually Priest didn't really change it much composition-wise. And maybe that's why to this very day the Green Manalishi remains one of the most oftenly played songs at a Judas Priest concert, with a mind-blowing amount of more than 1,000 performances throughout the years. And the only cover performed by Judas Priest at the Invincible Shield World Tour, which, if you are subscribed to this channel, you might find out a bit more about soon. After a 10-year-long break of not making any covers whatsoever, in 1988 Judas Priest released the album which was never supposed to be released, and it was pretty much supposed to be a side B of a double album, Twin Turbos, on which Judas Priest dared to cover a song which I guess is known by pretty much everyone on planet Earth. In 1986, Judas Priest were approached to provide their upcoming release Reckless as a soundtrack for the movie Top Gun. Yet after reading the plot of the movie, the boys thought that there was no way it could have possibly succeeded, resulting in them refusing the offer. A decision which of course was not the best one from a purely commercial point of view. And so when in 1988 a similar opportunity came their way, Judas Priest immediately agreed to it, recording a cover which, despite the fact that it was released as one of the singles to ram it down, was received by the fans with rather mixed feelings. A cover on the legendary Chuck Berry's Johnny Be Good. And here's the thing, I have a coming out to do. Although I don't really think that it is the strongest song Judas Priest have ever written or covered in their career, I actually really like Judas Priest's bold and fun rendition of Johnny Be Good, and I would absolutely love hearing it live at one of the upcoming Judas Priest shows. And that is it! After covering Johnny Be Good in 1988, so 36 years ago, have never ever released another cover. So why is it so?
Why?
I believe that the reason for that simply lies in the current state of heavy metal and the band's position in it. If we take a look at it, historically, Judas Priest have released cover songs at breaking points in their career, and at a time when heavy metal as a genre was at crossroads the most. And maybe that's why we haven't heard any covers from them since the release of British Steel and all the way up until Ram It Down, simply because it wasn't necessary at all. And this is exactly why I believe they haven't released any of those since. Judas Priest by themselves are as renowned of a band as one can possibly be, and them releasing a cover song at this stage of their career would not do much, neither for the band, nor for heavy metal as a genre, unless they would do it as a tribute to one of their legendary heavy metal friends. But the truth is that since then, Judas Priest have developed such an iconic and recognizable sound that combined with the size of the band, this cover song would be more of a steal, as no matter what, Priest would always make it their own. And at this point, it is simply unnecessary for the band anymore. So yeah, if you ask me, I think it is very unlikely that we will ever hear another Judas Priest cover on their studio record. And what about you? What do you guys personally think about it? And which is your favorite cover Judas Priest have ever done? Please let us know in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching this short video, guys. We will prevail. Slava Ukraini!